and their friend group is asking you to enter into like describing what their personality is in a very judgmental way, that is a total minefield, and you really can't get involved in that in any easy way. I mean, assuming the friend group is somewhat dysfunctional, which a lot of friend groups are. Hey, I am Demon Dev, and today I'm really just trying to psych myself up to do some writing. I think about and make notes and journal and draw about what I want the story to be uh, for Double Demons a lot. But when it gets down to actually converting, all of the ideas, plot, and like character traits into dialogue that happens in the game, um, a lot of the times I like freeze up a little bit. So I'm trying to really psych myself up to do a lot. Probably in total, I've written and rewritten about 100 to 200 conversations in the game, which is not much considering that I've worked on the project for a little over 5 years. But regardless, I have put a lot of time into coming up with the ideas. So part of bringing, I feel like, motivation to the table for me is reconnecting with why I'm doing the project in the first place. So I'm just going to kind of play that out for myself for my own benefit, but hopefully be interesting for people to watch if they are facing similar stopping points in their creative process, especially with story design and getting it out into something that everyone else can experience. So, why am I working on this project? I am working on this project because I realized really about 5 or 6 years ago that I'm really into all of the aspects that go into romance and like character arcs in terms of having a really complex world. Having a really complex world, and then also at the core of it is maybe two characters. Are they gonna get together or stay together, or maybe they are together? Are they gonna stay together across all the conflicts? And sometimes those conflicts are philosophical with like world ending stuff or really, I mean, any subject matter. But I realized that I really love that about especially games. And I don't know, I realized that I wanted to make a game with that not just like in there like tacked on, but as a core mechanic. Like a lot of times I would resonate with the main character and then be like, oh, you and the other girl, or like, for example, like even in the Uncharted games, the dynamic between, Nathan Drake and Elena, I thought was super fun and, made the pacing exciting too, but it really wasn't the core focus of the game, which is not surprising. It's about, treasure hunting adventure. So it's just kind of in there at the same time. But I don't know. I just found myself really wishing that it had more elements for deciding how the character was interacting on that level. And I know there, are other genres of games like dating sims that take a very sharp focus on that, or even games that have a lot going on, like Persona, and then also have relationship building and stuff on the side. But yeah, I wanted the big story, but with the mechanics as at as deep a level as possible. Really, that could be fun and really feel like you playing as the character was you expressing yourself and connecting with that person as if it was, a real relationship rather than more of like a pre-scripted, like this will just automatically work out no matter what you choose, or the opposite, it'll work out only if you choose these few options, no matter how you feel about those options. Yeah, so I really wanted to break away from that. So everything about the story became coming up with something that would serve that purpose really well. And then I think over time, the more natural approach is reacting to the types of people that I came up with that would be fun to build relationships with and have that sort of complexity. Ended up wanting to go with more of like a high school formula, both because of sort of the anime influence of wanting to make sort of like a daily routine that would segment out time, also being heavily inspired by Persona as well. And I think it just works really well because it enforces a very segmented, like kind of time periods. Like, okay, I have this part of the day. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to spend it with this character, or maybe I'm going to fight monsters instead to get a different kind of resource or progression. I thought having those kinds of trade-offs and opportunity costs helps raise the stakes and the pacing, but makes it more meaningful because if you just have infinite time to talk to everyone, then sort of the completionism I feel like kicks in both in a like okay, well, I'll get around to it. It's not a big deal, so the stakes are down, but also it's a little bit exhausting. Can be, unless you're really attached to each character. So I wanted to break away from that, and so yeah, the high school paradigm of Monday through Friday, you're going to a place and you will be near certain people you can interact with, and you won't be around them at other times unless you go out of your way to. And even when you're around those people, you don't have to talk to them, especially a few days into the game. It's really more open ended. You can focus on just scrolling through social media to get slight buffs with relationships that are not in school, or maybe focus on classwork or other activities like that. But I want to bring myself back to, the core of the story. What's it about? It's about finding a way for the player to, I guess, create a version of themselves that is interesting or resonates with them. It certainly can be, trying to create so much depth in terms of expression options, like being mean here or being friendly here. One of the first conflicts in the game that I'm really excited about is you're talking to a girl, to Poppy, on the way to school, and she's being a little bit sassy, but it's fine. It's the first day of school, and you're confused about a lot of things. But as soon as you get into class, she gets kind of intercepted by her friends, and they're talking for a while, and you overhear basically her friends just being kind of mean to her, putting her down for being essentially a try hard nerd or something like that. But a little bit more nuanced and a little bit meaner, and you get dragged into it, and you have to decide whether you're going to kind of stand up for her or um, push back against uh, or kind of like agree with her friends and kind of be like, yeah, she can be a little bit annoying. Um, and it's more complex than it seems. It's not really just a good and bad decision, because I have much more complex feelings about that situation in real life. In real life, if you're not very good friends, if you're really just acquaintances with someone, maybe you talk to them first time, and their friend group is asking you to enter into like describing what their personality is in a very judgmental way, that is a total minefield, and you really can't get involved in that in any easy way. I mean, assuming the friend group is somewhat dysfunctional, which a lot of friend groups are. So one of the things that can happen is if you try to defend Poppy, maybe a little overzealously, then Poppy's not even a fan of that, because what have you done? Okay, you stood up for her. That's nice. But you're just some random person. These are her friends that she's around all the time. And now you've just painted a target on her back. They were bullying her a lot, but now they're going to want to bully her more because, you've reinforced that she does have desirable qualities, and maybe that's still for the best. Like, obviously that friend group is bad, but it's messy, and I want that messiness just for like real life, where because of that nuance, I'm not saying that you should the like I'm not going to say right or wrong decision. I'm just going to say, me knowing everything about the scenario that I've created in the story, I don't think that agreeing with the friends that she's like annoying or something like that is the like right, like perfect option either, just because it causes a lot of um problems if you confront her friends after like not knowing her very well and not really having enough credibility to stand up to her friends yet, perhaps. I'm not saying that that is a wrong choice, but being more vague about what you're saying, like just kind of like, oh, I don't know, uh maybe a more ideal option, because you can always circle back with Poppy later. And I do think it's a level of sensitivity that no one would ever consider, like, oh, if someone's doing something bad, they deserve to be called out for it in an abstract sense. Of course, in real life, we have a lot more nuance. But if you see that happen in a game, you're like, oh yeah, that's the bad person. Better call them out. But that assumption is not true, because okay, what if you just circle back with Poppy later? What if you end up being like, oh, I don't know, like we're all weird. You just kind of dismissive. You turn it out to other people. You say like, oh, I'm pretty annoying myself, to both diminish the insult on Poppy and but also make yourself not a target by not, being judgmental of her friends. It's a sneaky, potentially smart approach to that. Could be an option. And because that level of complexity and nuance exists, that's why I'm so inspired to make a game where I'm not setting hard right and wrong dialogue options. There is certainly many people who will choose that option for completely different intentions. And so the way that play style or just way of being, maybe you are annoyed by Poppy. She was being a little bit sassy to you. So maybe at this point in the game, you've kind of got in your head that you don't really like Poppy. So maybe you kind of do agree with her friends, and something about her friends seems more fun to be around. That's a possible and maybe even likely assumption. So what then? Well, in that case, maybe you'd be dismissive of the comment, like, oh, whatever, I don't know, she's annoying. But if Poppy asks you later what you really think, maybe you'll be like, yeah, you're kind of annoying or something like that, in a personal way too. And at that point, you've moved past, um, you know, what are the player's intentions? The game can't know that in an instant, especially with dialogue selection, because the interpretations and the possible strategies behind saying what you're saying. You could be choosing something not because you believe it, but for estimated outcomes. You could be saying it because you're panicked and confused. You could say because you think she wants you to say it. There's so many different reasons. And a game can only explore those reasons or those outcomes by letting you make choices and not triggering game over states, trying to run with what you're choosing and being open ended to kind of exploring further. Like the game wants to know, just like Poppy wants to know, what do you really think? What do you really think? Um, and the game, it doesn't end there just because, a girl asks you whether you think she looks good in a certain outfit, or, like any question. Um, just because you give an answer and it's a one-on-one situation doesn't mean you believe that answer. And that, I think, is interesting and real life. And that's part of why I'm so um determined to take out I feel like what's been in almost every dialogue system ever, the right and wrong. There's just emotional properties of what you say, and that determines her relative reaction within, you know, whatever the idea of what you're saying is. So I think that's a way to organize things that can do some really cool things. Players can explore being a person or being themselves to a level of degree that quickly gets far off any kind of, I don't know, mainstream or average path. That's what I want to explore with this, and that's why I'm really excited about the story. It does uh, feel overwhelming sometimes, like how many branches am I going to add? But one of the really cool things about the dialogue system that I've set up is there's different levels of organization. So a conversation can be self-contained, and I don't have to worry about what happened in that conversation if I don't want to. All the takeaway can be is, did the friendship improve? Did the respect and attraction improve? Or did it go down? At a very baseline, that will always be transferred from one scenario to the next. And then I can just be inspired by how the relationship's going to what kind of scenarios I want to come after. Now, I do want to explore very specific situations, so I will be in a lot of cases looking at conversations for like what happened to try and do something specific. But at a baseline, the system handles itself, and there's never going to be a moment where you had a conversation and it had no effect, or you did something surprising that the game, that me as a developer didn't anticipate, and it was meaningless. Like there's always math being tracked, and not just friendship and attraction, but also her frustration with you or her feelings of guilt for how she's treating you, um, are automatically, happening in every conversation with every person. Anyways, I am gonna get into story writing, and right now I'm just kind of rewriting the beginning of the game. When you're kind of getting started, you wake up and you're taking control over this high schooler who's been kind of a nobody and loser up until now, and you decide what to do from that point. You don't have to become a super popular lady killer or whatever. You can do whatever, and the game will walk with you and explore that. And I think that's really cool. And that's why I'm making this game. I think a powerful, like happy ending story of like, maybe you're into someone who's not into you, and you have to, in a sense, prove yourself or just be yourself in a way that they can appreciate and understand over a long period of time. I think something like that as a story is so much more meaningful and powerful if it's not going to happen no matter what. If it only happens if you are expressing a personality that that character likes. And that can happen from many different pathways. But ultimately, if your decision making and your preference for choices don't line up with what she likes, then that's it. She just won't be into you. And there's at some point no recoverability. There are redemption events where even if you ask her out and she rejects you, you can come back from that, but not infinitely many times. Just like in real life, some it's there's not always that you get a second chance, but sometimes there is, and but sometimes there's just a disconnect and you can't be with certain people. Anyways, that is what I'm going to get back to work on, developing the first couple of days of school and introducing all the characters and ways that you can be yourself around other people. Have a good one, and good luck with anything you're doing.